Welcome to part 2 of my Custom Shop Telecaster style guitar build project, the results of which I hope will equal the Fender Custom Shop guitars that I have here in the studio, but at a much lower cost and produced using fairly basic tools. Now in part 1 I took a look at the foundation of any guitar project, the body and the neck, choices available and the reasons why I made the choices I did. And in part 2 I now prepare those items for sealing and painting. Hello viewer, my name's Stu. Please do check out the rest of my channel as it covers my return back to playing and recording guitar after a 40-year break. And a big thank you to all who take the time to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, share and comment. As this is a series, do subscribe and hit the notification bell. And please do share. Now a wee reminder, I can't speed this project build up. There are lacquers that need time to dry somewhat and there are some other build considerations. So in part 2, coming up, number 1, the body and neck parts, a quick overview and amendments required before going any further. Number 2, sanding sealer preparation, things to be done ready for spraying. Number 3, 24 hours later, sanding primer and clear coat lacquer on the neck. And number 4, Danish oil treatment on the fretboard. And number 5, conclusion, final thoughts. So number 1, if you haven't watched part 1 and in particular you're new to guitar building, please do watch that as there are some good information there and advice when choosing a guitar body and neck. Now as previously mentioned in part 1, I ordered a 3-piece roasted alder Telecaster style body and a custom modified roasted flame maple neck with an Indian rosewood fretboard. Now these are high quality products at very reasonable prices, but they do come unfinished, and so in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions, wood products should be sealed within 14 days of delivery to reduce the possibility of humidity having an effect on the wood. Now I have checked over the roasted alder body and it is clear that this is a good example of tight grain and therefore it does not require grain filler. Now I will caveat that statement by saying you can get alder that does show signs of having a looser grain structure, but generally high quality alder chosen and dried correctly specifically for guitar building does not generally require a grain filler. Now before I started the process of sealing the wood with sanding sealer, and I'm using tins of spray, I needed to first of all drill out a chamfered entry hole for the neck pickup wiring, as I noticed the 3 wires were tight up against the small hole and was putting pressure on the solder joints, easily rectified by carefully widening the entrance. There was a similar problem with the bridge pickup to the control panel hole, because in this type of layout this little tunnel is also used by the neck pickup wires and the hole was just too tight. Again, care needed not to damage the body with the drill as the angle is very tight to the surface of the body. The typical Telecaster layout has the neck wires going straight to the control panel, but this body I have here is designed so you can omit a scratch plate if desired. I did understand that when I ordered it, I just hadn't decided if I was going to go for a pickguard or not. Now the other rectification is the jack socket. The insert was already very tight and once painted that would not sit on the body correctly, so I put a small chamfer around the edge of the hole and now that part fits perfectly. To aid spraying, it's common to use a wooden batten screwed into the neck pocket to hold the guitar, and these holes will be filled afterwards. Notice that the batten does not come right up to the edge of the body. Failure to do this will create a bridge of paint between body and neck, thereby causing damage on removal. When it comes time for the actual primer, colour and clear coat, the neck pocket will be masked off, which you will see later. And so that brings us to the sanding sealer. Number 2, I'll be applying nitrocellulose sanding sealer, and that brings us to health and safety. Here you can see I'm in overalls wearing gloves, and when sanding, good to wear a dust mask and a proper respirator mask when spraying nitrocellulose paint. Now warning, nitrocellulose is very harmful. You must guard your lungs from inhaling this stuff. Spraying in a well-ventilated area is also very important. Now, sanding. The body and neck are very nicely finished from the factory, but it's still good practice to rub the surface down, and for that I'm using 400 grit paper. Using a rubber block helps to do the larger surfaces so that I don't dig into the surface with my palm or fingers. Feeling the body with my fingers, I can detect the odd area where it's not quite as smooth as I'd like. To remove all the sanded material, I'm using compressed air in a can, which can often just blast everything with a cold moisture. It does dry very quickly, but care needs to be taken if using an open grain wood such as ash or mahogany. Now regarding the neck, the rosewood fretboard needs to be masked off. And for that I'm using painter's masking tape, and this type of tape sticks well, but also removes easily without leaving some gummy residue behind. I'm taping close to the edge as I don't want any sealer or lacquer on the rosewood. Now it's important to block the truss rod hole, and while I give the base of the neck a light coat of spray, I will later be masking the area off that fits into the body neck pocket. Now with the guitar body hanging from a hook and the nitro sanding sealer spray having been warmed in a tub of warm water, it's important to agitate, so that shake the can for a couple of minutes, testing the spray against a wall or spare surface to avoid spurts of spray on the job in hand. Now spraying light even strokes are all that are required. The usual method for spraying is to begin spraying just before you hit the body, moving purposely from left to right and or up and down with the can about 12 inches from the surface. Don't hold the can too far away or you'll end up with a rough finish, and don't spray too close or you'll end up with blotchy areas and runs. Now the first coat should be a light coat. Coats thereafter can be a little heavier, but it's important not to rush the job. Now once done, it's good practice to turn the can upside down and spray until clear, as while you wait between coats you can get the nozzle clogging up. Waiting 20 minutes and then spray again. Alternate from side to side and also up and down in an up and down pattern to ensure good even coverage. And wait another 20 minutes and spray again. 3 to 4 coats should be quite sufficient for the older body. Much depends on your spray conditions and how proficient you are. Now, the neck being maple is a very tight grain wood, and many folks don't even bother using sanding sealer on that and go straight to a lacquer or oil-based finish. After sanding the neck and headstock, I've given this just one good coat of sanding sealer, as I will be using an amber lacquer coat to seal the wood and set it aside to await the headstock decals to be made. So the next day, allowing the sanding sealer to dry completely overnight, it's time to rub it all down and check for any problems. Before sanding, I'm filling each body hole with crumpled tape, and I'm using 1500 grit paper soaked in warm soapy water to carefully and gently sand both body and neck, watching not to dig into the curved and cornered areas. Now, where there are open unsealed holes in the wood, you don't want water getting in there, as that can trap moisture and thereby cause the wood to expand. Now, another thing to watch out for is that it can be very easy to cut through the sealer if you're not careful sanding the edges. Now, I will say some folks do not use the wet sanding method and instead just use finer grades of sandpaper. Now, because the neck had only a light coat of sanding sealer, I took a dry piece of 2000 grit and just gently rubbed down to get a smooth finish, which did a perfect job. Now while I'm awaiting decals for the headstock, I will be sealing the wood with 2 coats of amber lacquer. So number 3, body primer and neck amber lacquer. With the body batten removed, and I put a line of masking tape just under the edge of the body neck pocket and where the neck rests on the pocket surface. As the neck is already an excellent fit, layers of paint or lacquer need to be avoided. Now the body is once again hung up via a hook with the batten, and all the pieces of crumpled tape blocking holes have been removed. Again, allowing the grey nitro primer to warm in the tub of warm water, I give the body 3 coats, allowing 20 minutes between coats. No sanding between coats is needed. As mentioned, nitro melts into itself. The only time sanding is required is when you get a bad run or some other blemish, and after leaving to dry, you can sort that out by sanding. Now once done, I will say I did not think the primer covered the body as well as I would have liked, and using this particular product from Northwest Guitars, I would say that you might need to think about 2 cans of primer if you want a good solid coat. Now I need a good solid even primer based coat because the final colour I'm going to be using is a metallic. More on that in part 3. Now the body is put to one side and the neck is now ready for a coat of amber lacquer. Same principle as the body, and the first coat is applied by 20 minutes later, where a second coat is then done, and that's where I will stop for the time being. So number 4, Danish oil. This fluid is combustible, as are the cloths that you will be using. Do not use anywhere near naked flames, cigarettes, etc. Once the job's complete, throw the cloths out into your rubbish bin and store the bottle of oil safely. You should also note that this stuff does have a strong smell, and you may want to wear a mask, at least work in a ventilated area. With the guitar neck dry, remember nitro never actually cures, I removed the masking tape and put the first coat of Danish oil, and that's the manufacturer's recommendation, onto the rosewood fretboard using a clean cloth, rubbing the oil placed on the cloth following the grain of the rosewood. Leave it for 3 minutes to soak in, and then rub the oil in with another cloth. This also helps to remove excess oil. This then needs to be left for 6 hours, and the same process is repeated. Another 6 hours goes by and the third coat is applied. This is then left overnight to thoroughly dry before I'll be masking up again to complete the lacquering after the headstock decals are applied. So number 5, final thoughts. So in part 3, I'll be preparing the body for colour painting and the headstock decal placements. And yes, I came up with a suitable name, along with further amber lacquer coats to the neck and headstock. Now in regard to any thoughts that I would share so far, as already mentioned, do take care of your health. Many of these products are really harmful and also combustible, so don't ignore this advice. Have everything that you need ready to hand before you begin. You don't want to be searching and scrabbling around for things once you start spraying. Care needs to be taken to fully agitate spray cans and invert the can between lengths of time not in use to avoid clogging. In this case, I found the grey primer did not cover as well as I expected, and having 2 cans of this particular brand on hand might just be required if you need a solid, even base coat. If you're having to store wooden parts for any length of time, do keep them in a stable environment, free from moisture in the atmosphere. Bare wood and primers will hold moisture if you're not careful. And again, above all, enjoy the journey. Please do think about subscribing, hit the bell to get notifications for part 3, like and share. As always, it really helps the channel out. So do check out my channel playlists, which cover my journey back to playing and recording guitar after a 40-year break. lots of equipment reviews as I seek out the gear I'm going to be using in recording. So whether you're a newcomer, an ongoing player, or, like me, an old hand returning to guitar playing, I always take the time to engage with folks who take time to comment. So, until next time, the journey continues. Do take care.